Okay, without further ado, I'd like to welcome everyone to the UCD EIT Manufacturing Webinar that's been co-hosted by UCD Research and IFORM. My name is Kevin Murphy, and along with Sinead McGinley, we're two of the members of the UCD Research Partners team. And representing IFORM, we have Dennis Dowling, the Director of IFORM, and Sophie O'Kelly, the IFORM Grants Manager. A few reasons why we wanted to hold this webinar for everybody in UCD includes that, you may have read when you were registering that UCD are a member of EIT Manufacturing now since the inception of it in 2018. And we wanted to kind of increase the awareness of the existence of EIT Manufacturing and also the fact of this membership that UCD has. And also ideally to kind of promote some of the EIT Manufacturing's funding opportunities and encourage more applications, so we kind of, as a unit, as UCD, can maximize on these opportunities. So you should see there on your screen today's agenda for the next hour. In a minute now, I'm going to hand over to Dennis Dowling, who will present some useful information on EIT Manufacturing. Before then, we'll have a panel session, which will kind of focus on previous EIT Manufacturing experiences and insights that have been kind of collected over the last few years and UCD's interaction with the funding program. Then after that, we'll have Sophie O'Kelly will be giving her some insights in terms of experiences around the Crosskick opportunities. And then after this, we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A session moderated by Sophie. And of course, at this point, anybody in the audience who has any questions, feel free to submit your questions, queries, to using the Q&A or the chat function that you should see on your screen. So at this point, to maybe tell us a little bit more about EIT Manufacturing, I'll hand over to Dennis, and I'll stop sharing the screen so you can do that. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I'll just upload my screen. So good afternoon, everyone. So a little bit of background about EIT Manufacturing. So European Institute of Technology, Innovation and Technology. It was originally formed in 2008, and there are 8 areas which it addresses. It ranges from climate to food, digital technologies, sustainable energy, and the most recent one is manufacturing. And as you can see here, it's 2.7 billion funding, and it's under what's called Pillar 3, which is that of innovation. And the idea is to link companies, research centers, and also university with respect to innovation and how to make Europe more innovative, how to make Europe the best in the world with respect to innovation. So it's very much closer to market than the normal, I would call, EU programs. However, there's a major role for universities in this program, and I'll describe some of the activities that we've been doing. So to begin with, these programs look at what they call a knowledge triangle, and the knowledge triangle consists of education, innovation, business creation. So you can see from the center this portfolio of programs here and the outcomes. So the outcomes with respect to this program are a very large number of people trained, and that training would be through EIT's own certificates. They're called KIC certificates, which indicates that the trainees have taken on a certain degree of training under this program, and quite a lot of content is developed under the program. Also in terms of startups, new products, and also in the adoption of new technology, and particularly with the Green Agenda in Europe, sustainability is a really important element of the program. So it's linking together those closer to market issues, but also recognizing the importance of skills in terms of achieving it. Within EIT Manufacturing, it has 6 areas which are focused on it. Now, the term manufacturing here is very broad. It's a very broad area. So aspects around sustainability in manufacturing, the social sustainability of people working in the manufacturing sector, as well as digital skills and digitalisation, the impact on customer and the business side and the agility of manufacturing, as well as the actual manufacturing, the core manufacturing activities around how to make things and how to make them as efficiently as possible and have skilled people making those parts. The triangular diagram on the right indicates the original group of approximately 50 partners, including UCD, who put in this proposal, which was successful. And as you can see, it's 54% industry with a balance between universities and research organizations. Some of the really strong research groups across Europe, I would say, the likes of Alta University, TU Delft, Technalia. Subsequently, there's been about 10 additional partners. Again, they're keeping that ratio of approximately 50-50 between industry and the research and academia. So a small number of additional partners have also joined. In terms of industry, you can see the types of areas from robotics, aerospace, equipment, electronics, and consumer goods. So very broad ranging in terms of its impact. So this is a broad program, and there's space for most disciplines, I would say. In addition to the activities within EIT Manufacturing itself, there's a strong focus on linking with other areas. So for example, you can see what are called cross-kick activities between food and digital, of which UCD is an active member at the moment. Also linking climate and raw materials. As part of their programs, they also have winter schools. They work closely with the World Manufacturing Forum, and there was a dedicated section within their annual meeting last November. And they also have competitions with startups. And just in terms of the program, you can see 17 partners, and they have 5 what are called co-location centers. We're linked in with the co-location center in Darmstadt, which helps to kind of engage local groups or groups within that center. I've just picked one example of the types of activities that they do in the education space. So UCD are very actively involved in terms of a master's program in manufacturing. We're at the final stages of that. In fact, I think the call for students will be in the coming weeks. We're also involved with the PhD program. So UCD students will have opportunities to travel abroad and will obtain funding for that travel. But I think the engagement and the expertise that they obtain through that international engagement. A further aspect of the program is innovation, dedicated innovation, week-long programs. Again, students will receive funding in terms of attending those. As part of the program, I'll explain how it works in a second, but they have what is called a guided learning platform, where we develop areas of expertise, which are called nuggets, which can be a kind of how to train, and the areas of, say, the videos or presentations or content or a demonstrator in that area, and that goes up on the GLP. So that can be then taken down subsequently or used subsequently. They use the word consumed subsequently by people from other universities or from industry. So how does it work? Well, essentially you apply to the program, and the program is funds for 1 year. There's a call for proposals in the coming weeks that will fund projects for next year. So if you take last year in 2020, we had a number of projects funded. There was the joint MSc program, which is on the top left here, and you can see the universities which we are linked in with. I was responsible for the Perform project on additive manufacturing, and I'll talk about that separately in a few minutes. We had a program which was designed for developing training for secondary schools called Factory in a Box. Then there was the Deep Ink, which was an incubator program, which Simon will talk about later on as well. We also had a Cross-Kick initiative in the area of food. In the coming year, we have at least 3 projects funded, actually at primary, secondary, and kind of tertiary levels in the area of developing content, encouraging students to be aware of the importance of science and engineering, and specifically the slant on programs associated with manufacturing. And just to highlight, these programs involve a minimum of 2 partners. Generally, the budget is around $250,000 up to about 400,000 per project. And as I said, it's for a 1-year program. This is a screenshot of some results that they had for last year. Sorry, it's slightly blurred, but it talks about who the program is kind of working towards. So it's managers, professionals, workers, university students, teachers, pupils. And you can see that the vast majority is focused, this is not the education program, at university students. And in the area of robotics, the large blue circles indicate a lot of content has been developed there. Relatively little, for example, in the area of AI or augmented reality, some in additive manufacturing. So that gives an indication of areas where they would want to develop content going forward, with the overall objective of developing a large level of content so that advanced manufacturing expertise can be drawn down by groups looking to develop that content, and EIT intend to apply a charge when they give out this content. So it's very much a situation where they provide funding to develop the content, but have the intention of charging for the use of it, not where you've developed it yourselves, but if you're consuming somebody else's content. My final slide is just to talk about, well, what types of projects and what type of funding. So again, it's innovation, business creation, and education are the 3 areas. Within innovation, I would say more focused at companies, helping them to grow and to develop and to link together. Business creation, Simon will talk a little bit about the work engagement with Nova UCD. So that creation and acceleration of companies is a key element of EIT manufacturing. And finally, the education piece, developing what are called teaching and learning factories, where you're developing content which is very applied, closer to market. Also uploading material to what they call a guided learning platform, which is this overall facility looking to develop content, and they hope that will be consumed. Every partner within EIT manufacturing can earn up to €1 million. We're a long way away from that. And we're really encouraging active engagement in this program. Over the last year, now the first call was in 2019 for 2020. It was a 50% success rate. I believe it's the same in the current year. So 50% of the full proposal projects that go through are successful. So compare with any other program, it's a low-hanging fruit, and it's there's enormous advantages in terms of participation and evaluation engagement with this program, and it's something for which we'd be very happy to work with you in terms of putting in proposals. So that concludes the overview.
That's great, thank you, Dennis. On that note, might move on to the panel session, where we'll hear from our panelists on some of their past experiences with EIT manufacturing that kind of touch on the various EIT manufacturing pillars, such as you mentioned there, Dennis, innovation, education, and business creation. Sophie O'Kelly of iForm will be moderating the panel discussion today. Our panelists include Dennis Dowling, Professor in the School of Mechanical and Materials Engineering, Sylvia Leatham, the Education and Public Engagement Manager in iForm, and Simon Factor, who's the Senior Manager of New Ventures at Nova UCD. Sophie, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So we're going to start with Dennis. I know it's not repetitive, it's going to be a completely different experience. So Dennis is the director of iForm and has been involved over the last few years, now the last couple of years, in a few projects. So here you go, Dennis.
Thanks, Sophie. So I mentioned as I went to get the overview of the program, there's one particular project called Perform, which I was responsible for last year. I put the application in, went about getting the partners. Now, the establishment of that program was basically before COVID. So each year they have, or the intention is to have, a networking event where people can propose ideas. You meet with other groups who are also putting forward ideas. This year, that will be very much online. So we put in a proposal. The actual application process, I would say, is a fraction of what you would normally have to do for an EU program. So at that side, it's low in terms of the threshold. And as I said, it's 50% of the projects have been funded. In terms of the particular project, it was in what's called Industry 4, this digitalisation of manufacturing. We developed a demonstrator, it's a turbine device. We integrated technology from other partners. So we had a group from the University of Patras, and we brought in their augmented reality technology. There was a second group from Alta University, and we brought in their digital technology. It's called Digital Twin. And that was brought together in this program. In terms of rollout of it, having developed a demonstrator, we use it in teaching. And in fact, we found it very useful because for undergraduate engineering, we use it within a manufacturing training program involving 110 final year students, got very positive feedback from it. So it augmented our education within UCD, but we also worked to apply that externally. And we worked with another partner in Mondragon in Spain to actually provide an education program, which we originally had planned to do directly, but we had to do it online. So we did this just before Christmas. And that involved 28 industrialists from 20 companies. And we did this totally online to groups from Spain and Ireland at the same time. So that was a very unique experience for us. And I would say that one of the advantages of this program is that it is doing a different approach, and you are gaining a lot of experience from the deep wells of expertise across Europe in this space. And that could be an enormous advantage.
Thank you, Dennis. Before I move to the next speaker, will there be a follow-up to that project, do you think?
We are working on it. So, for example, we pitched that project at a point where it's an entry level. It's an understanding of it combines additive manufacturing or 3D printing with augmented reality and digital twins. So the idea was combine that as an entry level understanding of it. Our plan is this year is to put in a new proposal, but at the next level, such that for those who wanted to go deeper but need a tool to practice it out, and the tool that we had developed allows integration of all these technologies in a single device. So that intention is to do so. But as I said, we're really encouraging as many proposals as possible, because if we can put in a strong proposal, we can draw down the full amount of money that UCD can gain onto this program. All
right, thank you. Okay, Sylvia Leatham is the Education and Public Engagement of IFORM, the SFI Research Center on Advanced Manufacturing. You have also been involved in EIT Manufacturing funded projects. Can you tell us more about that?
I can, thanks Sophie, and hello to everybody who's tuning in. And first of all, I just want to state that I am not a cat. And so this is my second year being involved with EIT Manufacturing. So last year I had one project, and this year I'm involved in 4 projects. So it's very, very busy, but it's brilliant, like, to have this opportunity. So all of my projects have been under the education strand that we were talking about, and that covers all stages and ages of education. So anything from primary school children to second level, up to third level, and up to master's and PhD level as well. So the funding is not just for research. You can get funding for training and for public engagement as well, and that's the area that has been of most interest and benefit to me. So I'm the public engagement manager for IFORM. So since 2018, I've been running programs for second level and primary aged audiences. And up until I got the chance to get involved with EIT Manufacturing. The only external funding that I'd managed to secure was from the SFI Discover Fund. If there's anybody on the call here who has ever tried to get funding for outreach, they'll know that SFI Discover is one of the few resources for funding for that in Ireland. You know, so as a research centre, most of our budget, of course, goes on research, so we wouldn't have a huge public engagement budget. So part of my remit would be to secure external funding to help me run programmes at a certain level and to scale them up. And our, you know, our main funder, SFI, would expect us to achieve national impact through public engagement. So there is, you know, pressure on us to deliver this. So a huge benefit is that, first of all, that there is funding available to run public engagement activities. And at the moment, there aren't very many programs in EIT manufacturing at second level, and like even fewer at primary level. So if you're competing in a call and you're targeted at one of these areas, there won't be a lot of competition for that. And as Dennis mentioned, we've had a very good success rate in getting things funded so far, and they are funding quite a lot. And then apart from the funding itself, then another benefit for me has been that it allows me to sort of leverage and scale up some of the existing programs that I've been working on. So for example, I have a smaller program in Ireland called Shaping Your Future that I'm running with just 4 schools in partnership with another manufacturing research centre, and that's for transition year students. But now through EIT Manufacturing, we have funding for a related programme to that, and through that we can now reach 4 to 5 times as many schools as we have been reaching. So it can help you take things to the next level. And then another key benefit is those European partners. You know, you benefit from their expertise and their experience, and then you can achieve also some economies of scale. So you divide up the project between you and you collaborate, and you know, you are probably achieving more of an impact than you would be just by yourself. And then just on a personal note, like as a professional in a niche field, which public engagement is, it's very interesting to meet other people and see how they manage public engagement in other countries. You know, it's great learning for me in my career, and I get to kind of grow my network. And you know, it is a community, so I'm starting to meet now some of the same people that I met last year, now that I'm in the second year. So you can get to know people a bit as well. And then, you know, when we are actually allowed travel again, which hopefully one day we will be, you know, we will be able to visit these countries as well, and to meet people in person. But like, as Dennis mentioned, you know, through the use of online video, it's just enabled us to adapt so well, and we were able to deliver 90% of the program last year, all just online, which is amazing. And then the last thing I'll just say is that having funding from EIT Manufacturing, it kind of adds an extra layer of credibility to our own programs here. It's you know, it's of interest to our funders and our client companies and our research colleagues. It shows that we're serious about public engagement and that we can attract European funding for it. So if anybody is thinking about doing a public engagement project, please get in touch with us. We'd love to have a chat about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was all very positive and enthusiastic. I'll come back to you with a couple of questions, but first I'd like to introduce Simon Factor. You're Senior Manager for New Ventures in Nova UCD. And just to demonstrate that EIT Manufacturing is not just about iForm, that anyone in UCD can actually access funding through EIT Manufacturing. So you're that demonstration today. Simon, can you tell us about the project you are involved in?
Of course, thanks, Sophie. Hello, everybody. So I'm from Nova UCD, and as many of you will be aware, this is the Center for New Ventures and Entrepreneurship at UCD. And my focus in UCD is to try to convert ideas or IP into new ventures, new businesses, spin out companies from the university that we take an equity position in. And I help to form the teams around those ideas. I help to raise money to get those businesses off the ground. So an opportunity to use financial resources and network coming through the EIT to do that in a more focused way within a particular sector. In this case, advanced manufacturing was a very welcome opportunity for us to broaden what we're doing at Nova and to pull in some additional welcome financial resources to support that. So initially, Sophie and Dennis had approached us at Nova UCD back in 2019. And while we had been familiar with the EIT programs, because we understood that Trinity were running a number of these kick type activities in 2018 and 2019 in climate and food, we welcomed the opportunity to investigate the manufacturing kick. And luckily, Sophie and Dennis had already done their groundwork for us, because they had come to us with two partners who were seeking another collaboration partner to go forward in a proposal to develop a network of European accelerators specialized in helping startups in the advanced manufacturing space. And those two universities were the Politecnico di Torino and also ENSAM in Paris. And so we opened up a dialogue with them in 2019, and we made a collaborative application to the EIT in 2019, which was funded. The value of the project was just shy of 200,000 euros. We got roughly a 1/3 share of that, and there was some contribution that we had to make as well. Some cash contribution, but you know, all in all, we probably benefited to the tune of about 45,000 to 50,000 euros to support our efforts under the program of work that we detailed in the proposal. So we implemented the program in 2020, and the broad objective of the program was to develop a collaborative accelerator program across the 3 universities, and each university would implement a series of workshops on its own location, one in spring, one in summer, one in winter, covering 3 different areas of new venture creation. And Nova UCD was covering the area of getting investor ready. This is something that we specialize in at Nova UCD, is helping new startup companies to position themselves effectively to the market and to investors to be able to get private capital to scale their businesses. Now, unfortunately, the whole program was very much affected by COVID. So the plans we had to visit our colleagues in Turin and in Paris were scuppered quite early in the year, and we had to very quickly adapt to deliver the whole program in a virtual environment, as we've all done with all of our teaching and lecturing activities. And that did require a little bit of renegotiation with the EIT office, but it all went pretty smoothly. We had to do a bit of rescheduling, but all in all, we still delivered the project, and we delivered upon our objectives for the year. So we had about 12 startup companies join the program. We had 4 teams from UCD. Now, while UCD and specifically Nova UCD offer programs to support our spin-out companies, they tend to be broad. So we'll have life sciences companies, we'll have AI companies, we'll have ag tech companies, all on the same program. So they're broadly speaking looking at new venture creation and development. But what this allowed for was a very specialized accelerator that would very much focus on the business of advanced manufacturing. And we catered to that by bringing in experts from industry and experts from different research centers. And with the support of Dennis, we put together a very specific program for the participants. And I think it delivered high value for them. So overall, I think participation in the program was a positive experience for Nova. And the impact for the organization was connectivity to the partners and the EIT program more broadly, but also profile. You know, this features a lot in the sort of promotional material that we put in front of our community and our sponsors. So being connected into this is another calling card that we have to kind of build a profile of Nova UCD. And then for our startup teams, it's also been very helpful. I know there are certain people on this call, I've looked at the participants list, who had members of their research group attend this program. And I believe that engagement has really progressed their thinking from a commercial perspective, and also positioned them in a more focused way towards funding opportunities to really progress the projects that they brought into the program. And one of the student projects that we had that came out of the School of Engineering has we actually won a number of EIT awards. So through the EIT participation, they got involved in a European hackathon, which they won, and they got prize money and access to different services. So we're using this as a bridge for our startups and our student startups to get access into the broader EIT manufacturing programs and the benefits that brings. So it's been a positive experience for us, and one that was helped very much by Sophie and Dennis really bringing the opportunity to us. So I suppose we didn't really have to go out and find the partners. So we were quite lucky in that regard. And the project overall has been a great success for us. So we consider future participation in these types of programs very favorably.
Thanks, Simon. I like to hear about the success story about the hackathon, but also to hear that it's not manufacturing. You know, that the array of startups that you had demonstrate that it's the definition of manufacturing at large, and it's more key enabling technologies in relation to manufacturing as well. So a lot of different things can be funded through EIT Manufacturing.
Yes, that's true. There was quite a variety of different types of startup companies that got involved, but they were definitely aligned around the theme of advanced manufacturing. So it could have been to do with AI and data analytics in terms of manufacturing processes. It could be to do with the development of new equipment that could be deployed within manufacturing processes, or it could be to do with the logistics around manufacturing processes. It could be quite broad, but ultimately it all rooted back into the advanced manufacturing theme.
Great. I think so. I'll try to move on to the next section, and because what we've heard from you, Sylvia, Dennis, and Simon, is about projects that have been resulting from the EIT Manufacturing annual call process. But as Dennis showed in his introduction to EIT Manufacturing, there are also other funding opportunities through Crosskicks projects. So that becomes a little bit barbaric, but the Crosskicks activities are projects that go across different, several actually knowledge and innovation communities, not only EIT Manufacturing. So it can be EIT Health, EIT Climate, etc. So for instance, currently there's one on water scarcity, there's one on girls in circular economy, and they are managed centrally by the different kicks. So it's not one partner. For instance, the UCD couldn't be organizing one, but partners are invited to participate and contribute on an ad hoc manner. So these opportunities arise throughout the year. And over the last year, actually, two researchers in UCD have been involved in Crosskicks projects, and they couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but they've asked to relay their experiences of these two Crosskicks projects. So one of them was the end-to-end digitalized production test bed for food, which again, Dennis mentioned earlier. And Dimitrios Argyropoulos from the School of Biosystems and Food Engineering was involved in this in one of the work projects, which was on the development of test bed concept, which lasted about 2 months over the summer, last summer. It's actually interesting that Dimitrios was also involved in a previous job in a university in Germany in EIT Food. So he had a good understanding of how the KICS works as well. But what he said about this one is that it was very well organized, and in general, that's his feedback about the kick. So that was very positive, I thought. And he said it was definitely worth it to grow a network, for instance. And what he found of interest was that it got him to collaborate with big companies in the field. And in the case of that specific Crosskick, I think Siemens was a partner, Atos was a partner. So that's actors that might be more difficult to engage with, are so big. But through EIT Manufacturing, you get to talk to these people. He also kept some of the research collaboration with other academics outside of the EIT. So again, this idea of networking and engaging with international collaborations. His feedback was that it's a good entry point for EU funding for postdocs or new academics. It's kind of a first EU grant starter before you get to a bigger EU funding project, which could be intimidating. Then you start with EIT, and EIT Manufacturing is a good way to start. There's smaller consortia, there's smaller funding as well, but there's smaller projects, only 1 year project. So it's a good way to get your first experience of EU funding. So all in all, quite a good experience from Dimitrios. And when I asked if you would recommend EIT Manufacturing to UCD colleagues, he said definitely yes. So that's good. The other one, Crosskick, that I wanted to mention is called Red Vial, Redefining Virtual Learning Experience. And that's a collaboration of EIT Food, EIT Digital, EIT Manufacturing, and EIT Energy. And last autumn, they launched a call for expression of interest to have a project about so running a couple of pilots on the utilization of virtual reality for education and training programs, and organize a few case studies and basically put them into context so that the ultimate objective was to create sort of a toolkit and guidelines for people to use virtual reality in education and training. And in the School of Computer Science, this is exactly what A.B. Campbell does. I'm sure he does other things, but this exactly fitted with what he was doing. And it was very relevant to him. So he engaged in this call for expression of interest. And unfortunately, the timing was really bad for him, and it was a very short notice. So he didn't eventually put the expression of interest in. But his feedback was that the fact that he could access the project manager and exchange with her on what they were expecting and on what was expected as well on the documentation and the forms to fill in was very positive to him. And so that actually saved him a lot of time, because he could figure out that there was something missing from the expertise that he could bring in, and he needed to bring in another partner, and that couldn't be, it was not feasible for the amount of time that was allowed, but it actually was very useful to him. His other feedback was, and I think this is the case for all the EIT manufacturing projects, is that the application forms are quite simple. They're nothing compared to a normal collaborative EU-funded project. So again, very, very positive feedback there. And so how to get involved now with those Crosskicks? When the Crosskick opportunities arise, they're available on the EIT Manufacturing website, and we'll relay them on the UCD Research Bulletin so that everyone can actually see the information and contact the project managers to get more information if they want to engage. So that's it for Crosskick. If that's all right, I'll come back to questions. I saw there's a question here in the Q&A that I can't see anymore, but it was a question about what can be funded by EIT Manufacturing. Is that only travel, or can you actually claim for time? And and any other costs you may have, materials related to your research. Dennis, would you like to answer that?
Sure,
question?
yeah. So if you take the Perform project, which I was responsible for, we had a budget, a UCD budget around 70,000. And in that project, we actually had to employ a number of people because it was different roles, but we employed a number of people part-time on it, which can be a difficulty because you need to be able to work or put people onto projects for shorter time. We also had a travel budget, which because of COVID, we didn't really use, but we were allowed to reallocate elsewhere. We had a consumables budget. We had also an external consultancy budget. So the budgets are very similar to normal EU type projects. And there is a degree of flexibility even within a 1-year period that you can request changes across that budget. So it's very much very similar to a normal, I would say, EU project per se.
Thank you, Dennis. I've got a question for Sylvia. How did you engage with the partners? How did you create your consortium? And I know you're involved now in a pitching session for the matchmaking event. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so the EIT have a few opportunities during the year that they call matchmaking events, which was not quite as exciting as the title would imply, but you get to, if you have an idea, you can present just maybe 3 minutes, like a kind of elevator pitch style, and then everybody else who's in the consortium is tuning in, and if somebody likes your idea, they'll contact you afterwards. And likewise, you're there watching all the other pitches as well, and you can connect with people that way. They have other events during the year and conferences that you can attend. And then I think, just like any other kind of way of doing things, you just kind of get to know people and they know people, and that the consortium is I think it's 50 partners, so it's not a huge number. You can kind of gradually get to know everybody. And Dennis, I think, had a lot of connections there already and was able to help us meet the right people.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add to that, like we want people to engage in this program. So we are, look, for to be as active as possible, we will give our experience in terms of groups that we've been involved with, but also to kind of say, well, we think X does it, and the names of partners, the contact details of our partners are available. So there is basically, for UCD staff, there is a support mechanism. If you have an idea that would fit or potentially fit into this program, Sophie or myself will be very happy to work with you and tease it out and help you to get on that road in terms of the initial partners. And just to mention, you can also bring in additional partners. As long as you have a minimum of 2 core partners, you can bring in 1 or 2 others as associate partners into this program as well.
Thank you, Dennis. I think that answers as well a question from the audience. So that ticks 2 boxes. I was going to ask you as well, Simon, you mentioned that, so going back to 2019, when we brought you this project and asked you if you were interested, what did you think of, the process of engaging with the other parties in the discussion? Was it painful, or, how was the application process like for you?
The application process was very straightforward. I had previous experience of being involved in FP7 framework funded projects in my own businesses before UCD, so I have exposure to these kind of European funding mechanisms, and this was much more straightforward. The application document was pretty concise. It didn't need to be too verbose in terms of the amount of input into it. The partners, I mean, obviously, the application process isn't just the application, it's your partners and their input and your ability to put together a good plan. And so we convened a working group quite early, and Sophie, you joined on some of those calls, and we tried to flesh out what a program might look like, and who we would market it to, and the sort of content that we might deliver. We all put forward to commit to undertaking to deliver certain components, and that really gave us the framework we needed to write the application document. The application was led by the lead applicant. In this case, it was Ensam in Paris who led it. And the person working on their side was pretty proactive. You know, they were good at getting the details out of everyone and assimilating the information. So, you know, you do need to have a good leader on the application to be able to do that. I did notice that, you know, all of these organizations were well set up for the administration side of making an application like this. And they seem to have organized themselves into teams where they'd have somebody who was representing the incubator, and that in our case that was me. But in the other institutions they had that person, so they were more involved in the plans around how they'd actually deliver the program, and then they were backed up by somebody who was more involved in the research side of the activities. So somebody maybe more like Dennis's role, and so they were kind of more plugged into what other things were happening with regard to their organization's connections into the EIT program. And then there was somebody like Kevin, somebody who had experience of coordinating an application of this type as well. So we were well resourced on all sides, and so that meant that the application process was fairly straightforward. The application went in, and there wasn't a huge amount of further information sought by the EIT committee who were approving the plan. The way that it seemed to work, from as far as I could gather, was that the applications go in, and then the EIT draw up a business plan. And if your proposal is included in the business plan for next year, you've got a tentative yes on your project, and then they give you the final go ahead, and then they issue contracts. That happened then early last year. Things were a little bit delayed by COVID from an administrative perspective. I think by the time we'd actually got all of the paperwork to bed, it was probably early in Q2 of last year. But because of the COVID situation, we hadn't expended any resources, so there wasn't any major risk on our part in that delay. But yeah, overall it was a fairly streamlined process, and it didn't take up a huge amount of time. And I didn't feel that we had to pull our weight any more than the other partners. You know, it was fairly evenly balanced in that regard. Did that answer the question,
okay.
Sophie?
Sorry? Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Yes, very well. I want to go back to Dennis, because you touched upon the evaluation process, Simon. Dennis, this is a two-stage call, right? You submit a short application, and then if you're through, basically, if you match the requirements, you require more details from EIT Manufacturing. What is your experience of the evaluation?
The evaluation is done independently, so it's carried out independently of EIT. So they send the proposals out to external groups who provide a ranking in terms of the program. Those projects that are successful, the full proposal. Now the proposals, as I said, are quite light. Like I'd say, I don't have the exact numbers, but it'd be equivalent to maybe 3 pages for the initial proposal, and maybe 6 to 7 pages for the final proposal. They're relatively light. Obviously, you have to provide financial information, the work plan, and the partner structure and how it links in with what they do. Once the closing date for the second round was generally towards the end of April, we heard a preliminary feedback in June, but they don't give the final go ahead, because what happens then is it goes back into EIT in Bulgaria, who kind of look at overall programs, and it does take a little bit longer for the final go ahead to be given, but they do indicate to you where you are in terms of that ranking list. And there's obviously some at the border that could at the end go, but for the most part, the proposals that have been successfully gone through the process are funded. So it's a light touch application process. They're smaller projects, and for that reason, it's as you've indicated earlier on, from one of the colleagues who reviewed it are applied to this program. It's a much easier program to be successful in than some of the larger programs, and I think the big advantage is that networking, because we would have got into 2 subsequent proposals this year because of our engagement in EIT previously. So it is helping to get your name out there, and if you can deliver on it, it's helping profile enormously.
My connection is not really good, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you okay, Sophie. We can see it's just very slow. You can see your face.
Okay. Okay.
You're back now.
I keep breaking. Oh yeah, I'm back now. Okay, good.
No, you're okay.
Right. So I had another question, which was, you know, EIT manufacturing that's one thing, but what was it for all of you? What are the benefits outside of EIT manufacturing? You know, what were the benefits of EIT manufacturing on the rest of your activities? I think Sylvia, you had a few. You addressed that in your speech already, in your presentation.
Yeah, so it's great for, you know, if you're already kind of working on something or in a particular area or have an idea, to make a program bigger and better, involving more partners, and a chance to kind of, you know, you can get funding to kind of bring your own activities within Ireland to the next level, and then you also have the added benefit of, you know, your program's also being rolled out in other countries, and you can learn from that, you know, and you can use findings from that to inform then the next iteration of your own program. And yeah, it just really kind of takes things to the next level, because it can be, you know, you can be quite limited in just trying to do things yourself locally, but then, you know, you can start to kind of work at scale, and to really get the benefit of having those partner relationships through EIT.
Great. And what about you, Simon? Did some of the startup, your Irish participants, did they actually benefit as well from the international experience? Was it something that they learned from?
Yes, I would say that they did. I think that if you have specialist accelerators that are thematic or domain specific, I think that means that you can go a lot deeper into subject matter that's more tailored for the area, and that's going to be a benefit to the teams participating. It also means that you can bring in specialists to talk about their experience, and all 3 partners did that in this particular program. You know, we went to local partners. They could be alumni of our accelerators who've done very well in scaling a business. They could be industry partners who may have an interest in the products or services that these startups want to promote, or it could be specialist venture capital companies who invest in these kinds of projects. You know, so you can make everything quite thematic, and so we could leverage that network more effectively for ourselves, but also get more network from the partners. You know, to help with that. So yeah, from that perspective, it was impactful. I'd already mentioned that it was just good from a profile building perspective. You know, Nova UCD have sponsors. You know, we have industry sponsors, and obviously we're funded by Enterprise Ireland and by SFI through KTI, and so we are you know, we want to be able to demonstrate to them that we are engaging in, you know, global collaborative activities. I mean, this fits with our overall UCD strategy now as well, you know, so it's a good platform to begin doing that. And through those connections, we might find that there's other programs or projects that we can collaborate with these partners with in the future, maybe towards other sources of funding. So I think that, you know, from an organizational perspective, that's useful. And then, you know, from the point of view of the participants in the program, I think that they definitely accelerated their projects, because they've really been immersed in a range of different areas that we probably couldn't have covered or delivered with such a high level of specialization had they just come through our normal programs. So, you know, one of the objectives that Nova UCD have is to create 5 new spin-out companies a year. And so if we can create a drive around advanced manufacturing startups over a 2 to 3 year period, and that generates, you know, one additional startup per year, then it really has an impact on our performance as an organization, and also how the university can report back its metrics into KTI and Enterprise Ireland. So, you know, this is something which, you know, it has a good knock-on effect if we leverage it effectively in the context of our overall metrics and objectives.
Super, thank you, wonderful. All right, I think that's all we have time for today for this session. So I'd like to thank the three of you for your testimony there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. So just before we finish up, I just want to, on behalf of Kevin and myself in UCD Research, thank all of our speakers and panel members. So Sylvia, Sophie, Simon and Dennis, and particularly Sophie for facilitating the panel discussion and Q&A. Thank you very much. It's been really fantastic that you've given up your time today to share your experiences and positive engagement and learning from engaging in EIT manufacturing, and really showcasing the success stories and how it could lead to longer term opportunities and engagement with international partners. And also we really hope that from today's session, all of the attendees have gotten a better understanding of the opportunities in EIT manufacturing, and that we'll see greater engagement by UCD, and, you know, we'll be able to really avail of the opportunities to access that funding annually. I'd just like to finish by saying that if any of our attendees are interested in learning more about EIT manufacturing, have any questions that you think of after the webinar, or are indeed interested in applying for some of the funding, to please contact either Sophie in iForm if you're an iForm member, and I've put our email addresses in the chat box there, or myself and Kevin in UCD Research, and we'd be happy to support you. So thank you very much again to all of our speakers, and also to everyone for joining us today. And we hope that you've learned a little bit more about EIT manufacturing and the opportunities, and that we'll see great success in the future. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.